I'm Eva Oh, and this is the Teakink podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening. So, thank you for joining me. Today we have MJ, who has done many things, but you may know of one thing in particular, which is the Joyride parties and events, right?
Yes.
How long have you been doing that for?
Almost 2 years.
Oh,
I know.
Congrats. Are you going to have a birthday?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I say almost 2 years, but that's because we started working on the project this time 2 years ago, but we didn't launch until February of 2023. So it's,
a few more months to go.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm aging us.
And what is Joyride?
So Joyride is I think most people will know us for our sex parties, which are queer and very open and very debaucherous spaces. And we have a residency at Corsica Studios here in London. Beyond that, though, we also host socials, which are more of the educational and cultural tilt, where we have panels and workshops and markets and performance and tattoos and tooth grills at the last one. And so, yeah, we're London-based at the moment. However, we recently announced that we're actually going to be launching in Dublin next month, which is
congrats.
Thank you. That's obviously, I mean, I don't know if you know I'm from Dublin, but yes, you can tell from my accent, I'm from Dublin. So it's hugely exciting, and it feels quite emotional as well, because
going home,
but also going home to a place which has, for me, up until I would say the last number of years, been somewhere long associated with sexual conservatism and prudism. But I have noticed a huge shift in attitudes, and I think that that's also reflected in regulation change, or legislation change. So we recently had the marriage equality, and we also had the 8th Amendment, which was allowing abortion in Ireland for the first time. So that's clear, tangible
steps of bodily autonomy.
Yeah, that people are more open-minded and exploring their sexuality more. But we've also seen a load of really cool queer parties cropping up, like Honeypot and Tender and a bunch of other ones. And so we were okay, we see this. And then I don't think that there's anybody doing it though within our brand of sex positivity and queerness and really encouraging people to explore their sexuality in that way. So I'm okay, now is the time to go and get our fingers in.
Have you started advertising?
We have, very lightly though. We literally launched, we put out an Instagram post last week, which we got a great response from, but we'll really start with our push from this week forward.
Okay. And how many people are you thinking to have? What kind of setup?
Yeah, so we'll launch with a social on the 21st of November, which is actually also my birthday, which is a little bit I'm oh, great. Because it's all no matter what, the events are always going to be a day of But so we'll launch with a social, and at that social we'll have a kind of fireside chat with both Lydia and I, who run Joyride, and we'll have somebody asking us questions about sexual exploration and the parties, and really introducing people to the concept and how it works. And then we're also going to have Smut Magazine, which is a really cool queer kind of sexy design-led magazine that's I think also has a presence here. And then we'll also have tattoos, and we'll have a DJ, and that's going to be at Racket Space, which is this really cool venue in Dublin. And for that, we'll have I hope we'll get between 100, 200. And then for the party itself, I'd say 300, 400. And we'll have that at this great venue called the Grand Social, which is a venue that I'd been going to in my my later teens, always a really cool venue. So the fact that we're now doing this in Dublin at the Grand Social is just, it's cool.
Really bringing it together.
Yeah.
And what's it like at the spaces when you're talking about all of these different aspects, the tattooing, but yet there's queerness at the center of it? How did you kind of come to focusing it on that?
How do you mean? Do you mean?
Well, I mean, it sounds like it's a lot of things that are going on, but you were saying that the core of the brand is sexuality and queerness. Where did you decide that was going to be the focus?
Well, I think that what we do though with the tattoos, for example, that will be a queer tattoo artist, and we'll work with them in a flash sheet, and the flash sheet will be like paddles, or we've had some really cool. We had Emily Malice do tattoos at our last one, and so it's always still within the integrity of the brand. So it'll be a queer artist tattooing erotic and queer designs.
Okay.
And I think that we're just kind of tapping into different desires that people have coming to our parties. So what we definitely recognize is that people aren't just coming for a great club night. They're coming because of that connection point and that community thing, or not community thing, but that community feeling. And so it's what else do people want from this space? And we have a lot of like very creative people as well that are like within the space. So like kind of platforming them and then being able to like bring their artistry to it too is really cool. And I think it also brings the right people into the party.
Yeah. And did such a scope happen at the beginning, or what did it look like at the beginning?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier on as well. I think like it really has evolved into something a lot bigger and something that we definitely like. I think we had a very clear vision of it, but it really has evolved in that way over the last couple of years. But the way it began in the beginning was a bi-weekly sex party. So we were doing them every 2 weeks at Corsica Studios, and that was like our main remit. And then I think over the course of the year, we kind of realized that there's a lot of people who don't just want to go to sex parties or want to have more than just the sex party outlet. And so we put more focus on the social elements as well. And I think more and more we've been seeing like how popular they are. And so we kind of build out what that can look like too. So when we first had our first one, it was like purely a workshop and a market. But now we have like, the tattoos, the tooth grills, and any kind of other bells and whistles we can bring around it.
And how would you say Joyride looks different to maybe other sex parties in London?
Yeah, I mean, that is another great question. I think that when we started out with Joyride, there was actually less. I think in the last 2 years, more and more parties have cropped up. And those parties kind of are, there's a lot more parties that are now also for the queer and kink community. And so that has been like cool to see, because I think that everyone is kind of doing something a little bit different. But for us, that also just means like really honing in on what does make us different and what makes Joyride and like what are like kind of like special sauces. And I think like the music is a key element, like having the programming or having like a residency at Corsica Studios, which is like one of the best nightclubs in the world. That means that like musical programming is really important to us. And we really put a lot of effort and curation into that. And we also have a slot that we kind of reserve for more emerging artists within the queer community to kind of come and hone their sound. And then the educational point. So my kind of gateway into all of this was through, I started training to be a sex educator, and I was kind of like looking for opportunities within the space. And that's kind of how I got my first role within the sex party scene. And so like the educational point to me is just as interesting and fun to explore with. So I think that we have built out like our panels and our workshops, and that kind of covers many different areas of sexuality. So it's not just like, the kink element, it's also the tantra element, it's also the communication, it's also shibari, it's also non-monogamy. We've had like some really great workshops by like Ruby Rare and polyphilia. So having like the music and the education, and then like I guess like the community focus as well with the different sort of elements that we bring to our socials, does make it feel very distinctly Joyride in a way that I think I haven't experienced in other parts of the sex party world.
And you say that you came through more the education angle of things.
Yeah.
Why did you study it in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I had been working in much more corporate spheres before this, like had a whole different life before I entered the sex party life. But I was in a bad accident a couple of years ago, like on the cusp of the pandemic. I was cycling my bike and a motorbike went to overtake me, and the motorbike went through my front wheel. And so I came off my bike and I shattered my wrist. So like my wrist is all metal, and I broke my back. And so I couldn't exercise, which was like my big reliever for my mental health. But I came across this one platform called Dandelion, which had loads of different self-development courses. And one of the courses was called Sex Club, where you'd meet with 30 strangers over Zoom and talk about your relationship with sex and love and intimacy. And it was like the most powerful therapeutic experience I ever had. And so I did way more workshops then throughout that year, like throughout the pandemic year. And I actually did like a bout of psychoanalysis, like really digging into like my own sexual preferences. And it was all very impactful for me, but it also just like kind of fostered this like desire and I'm not going to say obsession, but it's certainly like, I certainly was like, oh my God, this, yeah. But you see, I'd never known this world to exist. And so I was now finding myself in this whole new world, which was so exciting to me. And
what
so
world
full.
Is it?
The sex world or the sexy world or wherever.
So people who are expressing their sexuality in a way that they come together to do so?
Absolutely. Expressing and exploring, and so open-minded and so exciting. And I didn't know this world existed. I didn't know sex parties existed. I didn't know really what kink was, you know? And it was only when I was 28 that I was introduced to this. And that to me now seems like very startling, but that's how it was.
That's almost when I started doming.
Really, at 28 too? 27, 28, yeah. Yeah, interesting. I wonder what it is about. That's also like the Saturn return, isn't it?
I have no idea.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what that is either. So I'm like, I don't want to take us down a wrong track. But it's something around the age of 28 that you do have some kind of shift in your life.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think so. It did just kind of like foster this desire to be somebody who's like, you know, facilitating these experiences for other people, but really like making this my world and being someone who's like working to change society's perceptions of sex and sexuality, because I just think there's so much about it that we get wrong from so many different angles. And so for me, that's exciting because I'm like, there's so much opportunity here to like, you know, find a way to do it better, but also like to work with people that I really enjoy working with and to be in a world that is just so vibrant to me. So
is there something that you didn't realize from before that it's really clear to you now? Or is there something that you realized when you were in that sex talk room that kind of came clear to you that you didn't think about before?
I guess I didn't think about how much we don't, like in you know, outside of like the very sex positive bubbles we're in, how much we don't really talk about our sex lives or about like the specifics of the sex that we're having. Even in my circles, which would have been considered like quite like open-minded to a certain, like not massively so, but more than most. But having been in this space, like having been in that very like held container with all these people being so vulnerable about their sexuality, it really opened my eyes up to many different facets of the sexuality world and the different things that people can be into and the different experiences that people can have. But also I think like the lens that I then viewed it from was like how much that can have secondary benefits for your life. And so like how exploring your sexuality and exploring the different things you're into and finding the words for what you want and finding the like confidence to say like, you know, I want you to do this for me and or I won't do that for you. Like those kind of things, I think that were things I really hadn't realized would impact so many areas of my life. So then you become like more empowered and confident in areas that aren't related to sexuality at all.
And you've actually taken further steps into the educator role. Is that correct?
How do you mean?
Have you done like a course?
Yes, yeah. So I did a course with the Institute of Sexuality and Sexual Enlightenment, and that was great. Like it was good. It was online learning, so it's quite like it is a lot of the online stuff, which is a little bit more challenging than actually like immersive in-person stuff. But yeah, it was cool. And I create content for Joyride and also for other freelance clients within the sex tech space. And I curate like educational experiences. Like I love hosting panels where I have different people from the sexuality world speaking and educating, and I'll like do like the educational piece in terms of like the kind of journey I want people to go on. And then next month with the Dublin aspect, I'll be like crafting that workshop around sex parties and whatnot. So I'm using it, but it's not like the only thing I do, which is kind of perfect for me too.
Yeah, it was informative.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And what is sex tech?
Sex tech. So I think that's like a broad term to cover many elements of like technology that is for sexuality purpose. So I think that can be anything from like sex toys to porn to apps. to like apps as well, like sex education apps for sure. Robots, you know, actually I was because I'm in Berlin at the moment for a few months, and I met this guy last week who was telling me about this like apparently
the brothel.
Yes,
yeah, I know,
with the sex robot that's got a horse's head.
You have different options.
Oh yeah. So that's
interesting
like,
that person chose the horse.
I don't know if he chose the horse or if he was just telling me about the different options that are on offer.
Okay. I didn't know about the horse head, but there's lots of I think it's like a sex doll brothel, and you can choose which doll you want, and they have an interactive component which they have an actor in the next room who can observe everything that's happening and speak to you.
Wow.
Yeah, according to what's happening. Wow. But they can also heat up the doll. They can have different like things that are inside of it so it feels different when you're in it, or it can have a screen all around. You should definitely check it out.
I definitely will. That is so
I found it hard to make a booking, but
yeah. Oh, why? Because they were all booked up.
No, it's just like the communication is.
Okay. They need help too.
Patchy. Yeah. But apart from that, like I had a talk with the owner once. I wanted to go in and try it out. But and they have a Flinta rate also, which is nice.
No, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, so check it out. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, I absolutely will.
Do you think Joyride will ever go into something more than the events and the?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think that at the moment, focus is on events and like launching in Dublin and then launching in other cities next year. But down the line, I can definitely see it being something bigger than events. Not necessarily, not that like events aren't big, but I mean like there's
big.
just there's a lot going on. But yeah, I do. I think like we've got something very good. And I love it. I love it so much. And the team, like Lydia, who's my co-founder, is phenomenal, like my right and left-hand person. Just so I think that us building this together is very inspiring. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. How did you meet each other?
So we were both working at another party and we kind of just hit it off immediately. We actually met on the bus to a festival. And you know when you just like instant soulmates, it was just like, it was beautiful. I think we have like, we complement each other very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, because partnerships can get tough sometimes.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. The partnership gets tough. Of course it does. But it's like, how do we navigate it in that tough area? Because it's always going to be, we're running like sex positive queer raves. Like that is just fraught with messiness. And so it's just about like, okay, how can we navigate this together? Which I think we've kind of like, it's something we work on all the time and we're doing really well with it.
And what world did Lydia come from before?
Lydia's a producer, so they're an immersive producer. So like,
That's very helpful.
It's extremely helpful. And I think like, again, because like I would be more from like the storytelling and sexuality space, and then Lydia's more like the producer and they're also a DJ. So they've been really like building up the music for us as well. And so, yeah, it's a nice compliment. And I'm like, I think like Lydia will walk into a room and just look at a space and know what to do with it, which that's not necessarily like my point of acceleration. Yeah.
But where did the storytelling come from then?
I think it's a very Irish skill, isn't it? Or a very innately Irish trait, and it's something I've always really enjoyed. And then I also like I love writing, and I love like the color around it. Yeah, I actually did. My friend, he runs this night called Shankia. It's like an Irish storytelling night, and he had a Pride theme one recently. And so I told a story about like how I set up this sex party, which was actually it was so cool.
I would love to hear that. Maybe we can add it to the episode.
Well, I don't think we recorded it because that's the thing about Shankia is like, so he sets the theme and then speakers get up and tell like a 10-minute story at each point. But like I've never experienced anything like it because like.
Is it in London?
It's in London, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It just really brings people together, It's really cool.
So Irish sexuality.
Yes.
What is it?
Irish. How do you mean Irish?
I don't know. How would you describe sexuality in Ireland?
Love that. I mean, it's hard because it has evolved so much. But I think that it's a very Catholic country. We got divorce in the 90s, I believe. We got contraception in like the 70s. Yeah. Like it has been traditionally incredibly sexually repressed. But I think that maybe it's just something to do as well with like, the kind of the next generation coming along and really rebelling against that. That means that what I feel now in like this generation of Irishness, it feels a lot more sexually open. Yeah. And like, so we had a party yesterday and we had Owen DJ, who's one of our residents, and we had Robbie Kitt, who was our headliner, flown over from Dublin, and we had Mark Davis, who's also on the team with us. And I was just like behind the decks, like with 4 of us there, 4 Irish people, like at this queer sex party in London. And I was like, this is just so cool. It's just so cool. It feels, I feel like there's a real openness around Irish sexuality at the moment.
There's going to be an incredible feeling when you have the party there.
I think so. I was actually getting emotional on the way here thinking about it.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
And I can't wait to hear what people think.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. I mean, it's the 21st of December, so it's a tricky time.
Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas, but also lots of people are home and it's a real party weekend. So yeah.
Okay. And in terms of what you might see as a vision for yourself or Joyride in time to come, do you have any thoughts of what that might look like, what you've ever hoped for, or is it just kind of following a lead?
I would say that for me, I have both got, like, I love events and I love sex tech. So is there a world where I can be working across sex tech and events? And that is like, if that's like the evolution of Joyride, or if it's that I continue in the vein that I am in terms of like, I do work freelance in like growth marketing and creative relations and running events and community management for other clients, then that's also a good option. I feel like at the moment, like I'm in a real sweet spot, but that took quite a lot to get there, because when I first started out like in the sexuality space, and I had like, as I said, like a much more corporate background, like I'd studied law, I'd worked in the legal field, I'd worked in comms agencies, I've been doing a bunch of different things. So I kind of thought like, if I do my sex educator course, there'll be naturally opportunities will arise, but that's just not the case at all. Because it's like it's a space which is just so fraught with barriers in terms of like, you know, societal stigma or like access to funding or financial discrimination. And so to actually like be able to carve out where I'm at now has not been easy. So I'm feeling good. I wouldn't say a fight, but certainly like a determination. You know?
Determination to you, a fight to others. But sex tech, like, how did that come your way?
That was something that I had been like plowing away at for a while as well, because I really think like in the tech world, like you have the opportunity to do big things. You have the opportunity to do things like working on big projects with bigger teams and that are like really well resourced, and you can also like learn a lot. So I was like navigating it in different places, just like always reaching out to people, not getting very far. But then I actually got a gig last year working with this app, which was about sex ed and relationships for straight guys, which was a really interesting project to work on because I've been so immersed in queer spaces and like more femme focused areas. So to see like through a lens for straight guys was fascinating, and to try and get like straight guys into the fold. Like these are the people who like have often been like underserved by the sexuality space. But it was hard. It was hard to try and to really like bring them in. So I was doing that for about 9 months until there were some issues around like funding and whatnot. So that project is no longer in existence, but I have been I'm not really, because nothing has been like absolutely solidified right yet, but I'm working on a number of things at the moment, which I'm finding exciting. Like one is around a platform which is like a real disruptor to OnlyFans. It's built on the blockchain, so that means that the creators keep all their earnings, and it's really putting like the creators at the center of the model. But yeah, nothing has been confirmed quite yet, so I don't really feel like I can share too much, but that's cool.
It sounds like it's been a lot about reach, and actually
massively so. Like literally just like I'm still doing it. I have coffees with almost every day. I'll ask someone to have coffee with me.
I meant like it hasn't actually been so long since the beginning of the pandemic that you stepped into that room, right?
Yeah.
And then you joined this event, and then you created your own event, and then now you're looking to tech, which is like such a wide potential sphere. It's actually been a really fast trajectory. Yeah. Have you realized that?
Do you know what? To a certain extent, yes. But I think because I'd done like a bunch of things before, but I'd never had my thing. And so when I found my thing, I have this new energy and determination and pull that I just feel very like, I feel very focused, and I feel very forthright with what I'm doing, and like really like finally after so long, because there's a real sort of like sense of disempowerment and insecurity that comes from that too, when you don't know what it is you want to do and you try these other things and nothing's really sticking. And so when you find your thing, I'm Scorpio as well, so when you find your thing, you're like, this is it. Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of people probably go through their existence not finding a thing, right? And kind of subscribing to a workplace or a job title.
Yeah, well, you don't need to either, I think, you know, as well. Like if you're someone who's like, work is work and life is life, that's like absolutely fair enough.
Yeah. And if that settles for you, then good.
Go on, rock on.
Yeah, but when you were working with that app and you were starting to toy in the spaces of cis-het men's sexuality, how did that, where were the concerns for them as opposed to maybe in the queer spaces that you're so familiar with?
I think that
were there differences?
Definitely. I think that like healthy porn habits was a big one. Erectile dysfunction, a huge one. Like that's one that's kind of mired in a lot of shame for men, and not able to talk about it with anybody. And I think that men are so reluctant to ask for help too, so they'll just like internalize these issues, and it gets worse. Yeah, and then loneliness, like just not really being able to communicate, you know. And then also, I think perhaps there's still more of a reticence amongst men to explore their sexuality. You know, if they feel like they're a straight guy and they have any kind of like thought that deviates from that, I think there's more of a reticence to be able to explore that.
Yeah, there's a pressure to be a certain way.
Yeah. And then I think pressure within the relationship to be looking after their partner and to be that like stoic figure, not really able to be vulnerable. So I think it's very different actually, the men's sex and relationships versus women, or non-binary people or queer people. But
what are queer concerns then?
I guess that really depends too in terms of like where like within like the queer spectrum. But I think that when I'm looking at like sex ed for queer people, it's more around like, yeah, like how to, I mean, things like sex parties and BDSM. And I think that people who are queer are more sexually explorative and expressive than straight people.
It could be also maybe around identity is a huge one, right? What does it mean to want to move towards a certain headspace or not? Like our inner questioning of how we're made up. How do we relate to each other? Maybe it's even more like nuanced in some ways, you know?
Yeah, that's actually really true. Actually, I spoke to this psychotherapist last week and I was asking her a similar question about like the kind of clients that come to her and what are they like the queer people, like what kind of things are they presenting with? And she said that a lot of it was, they said that a lot of it was around like kinks or fetishes that emerge as a result of having been so repressed within their sexuality and how to manage that.
Yeah, so I guess they've had more time with an internal dialogue, which can be the flip side of being pushed in. Yeah, whereas it sounds like there's a lot of externality issues with the Cis-het male app that you were kind of on. But in that space, I'm actually also quite interested to find out more about how that inability to even recognize something, let alone communicate it, for a man can be. You know, like did you ever get to any conclusions about how to help them see themselves or step forward?
I think one aspect which is really important is like bringing men together. And so one thing that they opted to have, which was great, was like a men's circle. And so there would be one person who's a men's coach that would hold this kind of men's only space where men could come and talk and be vulnerable. And I think that is where the most impact has had and the kind of greatest shift will be had, because they can just open up and not feel so alone. Yeah.
So sad.
I know. There's actually a really beautiful documentary called The Work, where it's about in Folsom Prison, and they have prisoners with kind of people who are at high risk of going to prison come in and do this men's work together, and just like watching the men break down is really sad. It's really, but it's also like very beautiful, but it's also like you can see it's really embodied. Like for men, they really hold this in their body, and so when they finally allow themselves to access like that pain and that trauma and that shame, it's a very like visceral experience. And so actually there was a great person we used to work with called Can Fraser. So he kind of does this work in Australia as well, and he always says like when he has the guys in the room, like he'll kind of start them off by doing some kind of like physical exercise just to get them into their body before they go into the more in-depth kind of psychological stuff.
Smart.
He's a really smart guy. Yeah.
It's also good for me to know for my work.
Oh, really? Oh, I love that.
Like, what can I make them do star jumps before we begin?
And a meditation.
Do you ever see visceral reactions at your parties?
So, I see, this is actually a bit of I was talking about this with someone recently as well. So I don't actually work in the playroom. I keep myself away from that because I feel like as an organizer, I'm doing lots of like meeting people and socializing and all that. And I don't want people to necessarily feel like I'm now going to be in there watching them have sex. So I always keep myself away from that side of things. So I wouldn't say I've got too much of a nuanced understanding of how visceral the reactions get in there, but I think it's pretty hot.
I think you can even see it on the dance floor, though.
Yeah, you can see a bit. Yeah,
the
for
sense
sure.
of freedom.
Oh yeah. It's really quite something. I think that I feel very though, because I've been doing this for like I've been either working or at a sex party almost every week or so for the last 2 years. So I feel a little bit desensitized from like what is a visceral reaction to what's just like the norm.
Yeah, I still remember. I mean, I've been able to be in this space for almost 15 years now.
Wow.
But I still remember the first time I came here after COVID was starting to settle down, and I stepped into a sex party space, and just the ability to be, not even just in the playroom, the ability to just kind of just be and express and feel safe to do so, because you have the safeguarding, you have the processes and everything. It's just a totally different feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And therefore you're just, it is a visceral experience. You are just emoting in a way. You're free, more free at least. This is how I feel.
And when you say that, so as the experience in London is a lot more focused on safeguarding and awareness, do you feel like does that when you're in Berlin and there's kind of when there's less focus on the awareness and safeguarding, do you feel more or less free in those spaces?
So we just got back from Berlin. That's why. But I mean, I've been going to Berlin since I was 19. I'm 39 now. And so it's been a while. And I used to go on my own to Berlin, even back then.
Yeah.
So there's always been an ability to hold my own, I think. Yeah. And there is something kind of thrilling about the risk. But I'm lucky that I can hold my own.
Yeah.
I gotten in some real shit too, obviously. But I'm still alive. So there's that aspect of it, but it's incredibly dangerous. Yeah, to be in those spaces and to be able to experience things. I think a lot of people just will not even try, because the risk is just too much. So the ability to also just the no phones thing and to have that like be like a proper thing, like, and people are respecting your privacy. Also, it's like quite nice for me. You know, that is not really the case in Berlin or in other spaces.
Oh, as in like people are taking pictures at kink parties in Berlin?
I mean, the thing is, it's like, sure, they might cover the phone or something, and it is better now, but it's before the party where this culture starts, where this mentality starts. It's knowing that there's this rule book of rules of engagement before you get there, knowing that there's door staff that are going to like really look at you to see if you're going to cause anything.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. But it makes me feel like, okay, it was a challenge to get in here. I'm invested in being here. So is the other person that's also in here. They've had to go through that also. Therefore, we have an agreement. Yeah. And this agreement makes me feel safer to be here. Whereas if we don't have all of that, it's a little bit chaotic in society around sexuality and women's bodies and to live under that circumstance is very different. So when I go to a vanilla club night, things have improved a lot, definitely in the last generation or so, but maybe some places in Asia still, or, where we don't have that kind of a dialogue, it still feels, I just have to have another layer on, whereas I don't have to have that layer. In your space or in some spaces.
Yeah, I know what you mean,
So I'm playing at a lot of these things, Sometimes I just want to go to feel like I'm around
your
people. I might not even talk to that many people, but it just feels different.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
People are thinking.
They're a lot more aware. But actually, so I went for the first time ever to a party on my own in Berlin last week.
Oh!
It was Lab, which is the fetish party in the basement.
Yeah.
But I was struck by how nervous I was going on my own. So I felt like I was really nervous. And I know I'm someone that runs these parties and I had a friend actually who was playing who was like, so I knew he would be there, but I was still like just attending on my own, like not actually even knowing like where the door was, because I think as well when you're in Berlin you were like
it's pretty chaotic down there.
And so it was just but did you, when you were in Berlin for the first time 10 years ago, did you not feel nervous that when you were going to these parties on your own?
I think I'm partially naive and partially ignorant and partially capable. And so those things kind of meet together where I'm quite fearless.
Wow.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean I don't get into trouble. It just means that I will be there.
Yeah. But I think it was just more like a bit like I was like, oh my God, what am I going to talk to?
The lab is very confusing also though.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Labyrinth.
I love it, but you get lost very easily. There's no
a lot
window
going on there.
There's a piss pit, but no window. One of my favorite places for sure. I wish we had more. I mean, the lab is normally just for gay men, right?
Although, have you heard about Slit?
What?
Yeah, so one night, I think it only started last August, where they have Flinta nights now at the lab, and they're going to do it every 2 months.
Okay, that's good.
Next one's November.
That's good. But I would like there to be something available all the time.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more.
Maybe that can be a Joyride project. Actually, it's pretty hard for parties to be consistent, and I would say that yours is probably the most consistent in terms of that you're a weekly party or that you have events or...
So we're monthly at the moment. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I feel like you're doing something almost every week, though.
Well, that's because we do the socials too.
Okay.
And yeah, we are busy. I'm not gonna lie, we are busy. But I think that what we have is a really phenomenal team around us. You know, like Lydia and I are about
How many people actually?
So we have a team of about 5 or 6 production managers. They're all brilliant. And then we have like our welfare on the night. We'll have between 10 and 15, but we have a pool of about 25 or so that we will bring in from. And then we also have Mark, who works with us on the team, and Corsica are a dream. I think that is. I don't know. It's. I don't think it's like a very common experience that venues are as like nice and seamless and easy and great to work with as Corsica. So I think it's just like it is a good.
Came together.
The whole thing. It's like it comes together well.
Do you do the legals?
How do you mean? Do I look after?
Do you look after your contracts?
Regulatory and compliance? I do to a certain extent. Yeah. There's only so far that my legal knowledge will be able to get me in this round. But we also got Fran, exactly, who does our financials. So we've got a lot of people around.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, and we're part of the Kink Coalition, which is like a bunch of different parties in London, and like having that like kind of support network too. So if there's anything like around that, for example, like launching in Dublin, is there anything that we need to do in terms of like taxing and regulatory stuff, we can kind of like bounce it off other party organizers who've launched in other cities too. So
okay, so what is the Kink Coalition?
So the Kink Coalition is a body of promoters and organizers within London that came together to think about like how we can future-proof our spaces and standardize what we're doing. But I think what the really like the greatest benefit that we get out of it for ourselves really is like having this like network of community support. So we've kind of been really honing in on that aspect lately.
How do you standardize a sex party?
You create like frameworks and risk assessments that everybody agrees to comply with, and different kind of like best practice that will all say like, yes, we will all have this at our parties. And so when anything that may go wrong, as they sometimes do, if somebody comes in and looks and says, well, okay, well, what did you have in place in order to best prevent from this? Or like when it happened, how did you respond? So it's just like making sure that things are done in a procedural way. And I think that that's becoming more and more important as like more and more parties crop up. Like you can't just like, someone can't just come along and say like, well, I'm doing, well, they can and they do, but this is just a way of like better protecting ourselves and protecting the space as a whole.
Do you publish anything in terms of what these standards are?
So we haven't yet, but we have a risk assessment in the pipeline that will be published pretty soon.
Okay. And what do you think people think sex parties are? What are sex parties for the consumer, and what are they for a promoter?
Wow. Okay, that's a big one. Let's think about that. Let's start from the beginning. What do I think people think sex parties are?
Well, just because everything that you've been talking about is just so much, like it came from this experience of yours and your information gathering and information gathering in a way that was online to offline to bigger to back to online. It's just like there's so much that goes into what looks like an evening for somebody, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then you're talking about the potential legislation, the potential venue issues, the way that you want to do a risk assessment. It's like there's a lot. So I guess the thing is that when somebody who has no concept, however many years ago, that you hear the word sex party, it's like, what does that look like in my mind? And then when you actually go, what does that actually look like? And then what is it actually like behind the scenes?
Yeah, love that. I think, like I kind of even, when I thought about it first, how did I imagine it? I probably thought that people were just having sex everywhere. And I think that I also would envision it as something that's maybe like a little bit more like intimidating, or the music is like very like fast pulsating techno. And I guess that's why it's hard to answer too, is because that sex parties nowadays can look so different. Like there's a lot of different parties who are catering to different desires and needs and are shaping it in such a way that's like most authentic and integral to what they do. But so for us, like I guess like people might have like that misconception around the fast techno and the like kind of more intimidating atmosphere. But when you actually come and you see that it's this very like warm and open and like inviting and welcoming space, and it's just like so easy to meet people, and everybody is just so nice to each other. When you just walk around, you can just hear people just like complimenting each other the whole time, and it's really about like that connection point. And it's also about like the eroticism. And so if that's the experience that you're coming to have, like we have 2 playrooms. One of them is like absolutely beautiful, like designed by Donal Nolan, who's the Soho House interior designer. The other one's a little bit more like college dorm vibes, but it has its own charm. And it's just like, yeah, I think that when you come to the party, you can design your own experience. I think that what we really do is we bring people together. And yeah, what was the next part of the question?
What is it like for you?
What's it like?
What does
for
a
me?
sex party look like for you?
When I attend one, or
What is it like being the Joyride?
Oh, right.
person?
Okay. Well, you see,
You're not in the
Joyride
playroom.
person, oh God, no. I don't even work in the playroom. I don't even look at the playroom because I think as an organizer, you do have to maintain that distance. And that's like something that I'm completely fine with. It's not like something I feel like I'm being denied or have any intent or like desire to be in the playroom anyway as the organizer. For me, I actually work in a welfare capacity for like the first 5 or 6 hours. And we have like our production managers who are doing like the more like heavy production elements of the setup. So my role is really like both like, you know, safeguarding and looking out for people, but also like meeting people. And then I'll also work with like, me and Lily will both kind of share the artist liaison roles, so looking after our DJs. But yeah, after that, like after I've kind of done those initial few hours, actually from about 8 p.m. till 10 p.m, I just dance. Because I love like the music. Like this is the music I want to hear about. Like these are my favorite DJs in the world. And we're getting to program our party.
At your
like,
own thing.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, when I first started working in these parties a number of years ago, like I'd always been I was a huge party girl in college, like absolutely wild. But I think that and probably in my earlier 20s as well, but that kind of like that element did soften. But now I'm like a professional person in a party space. So it means that I'm not like, you know, I'm not really indulging in the party, but I'm really paying attention to the music, and I'm really paying attention to like how you can meet people and build these relationships at a party that then extends so far beyond what the party is. And that's actually something I'm becoming more and more interested in, as well as like how like community building at the rave. And I think that, yeah, we're actually seeing like in Berlin, like when I was like last week, there was this sober rave where they had, did you hear about this? Lunchbox Candy did like a sober rave where there was no drinks for sale and everybody was just drinking like smoothies. And so I think, yeah, I'm getting completely away from the question.
Oh, no. It's fine.
I think for me, like that's what Joyride looks like. Now, if I'm going to a sex party, that's not what it looks like. But certainly when I'm working Joyride, that's how it looks. And I, because it's a Sunday day party too, and because I have these other projects that I'm working on as well, I don't like, for example, yesterday I left at like 11, even though it ends at midnight, and that was hard because Owen DJ, who's one of our residents, was doing like some amazing bits. But it is always hard to tear myself away too. Yeah. Yeah.
And why do you, can you tell me more about why you think that it's important that the promoter of the party doesn't mix with the play space?
Right. I mean, for me, that's how I feel. Now, I wouldn't pass judgment on any other promoter that works in the play space because I think plenty do. And that's like completely, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. But just in terms of like how I feel, like what I would feel uncomfortable if, for example, I met you in the smoking area and then you were in the playroom with somebody and I was like there working and I would just feel like that's like a maybe like a boundary between us that I wouldn't want to cross.
So like, so you have a personal boundary around where you placed people or where people might, like you want to give people the room to decide whether they are showing that to you or not.
Yeah, I would say something along those lines. That does make sense. Yeah, I feel like I don't know what your level of comfortability with me then, you know, is also within the play space. Because I also know like even, for example, like if I was in a playroom and I had a friend who was working that playroom, like do I feel comfortable with my friend? Like they're not watching you, of course, they're working, they're safeguarding, but you are still like having sex in their presence. I like, is that where I would feel like there's like a level of anonymity that I would want in that space?
Yeah, I guess the thing is it's a part of me is thinking, all right, so I'm going to go to this public-ish space and I'm going to have sex in this space. And I guess I take a responsibility for myself where it may be witnessed by somebody I know who knows me. Or I don't have control over that anymore. I guess if I wanted to to do it privately, I would do that privately.
Right, got you. Yeah, and I guess like that is completely reasonable. Yeah,
me.
for sure. That's for you. But maybe there's other people who wouldn't feel
who are
like
not processing
Yeah,
that
and so
that
I'm
way.
like, what is like, what is like the amount of least room for friction here? Do I need to be in the playroom? Do I need to work in the playroom? Definitely not.
Yeah. And then I guess we can also go all the way and say, shall we even do a sex party? Right? I guess it's just like what it makes me think of is how difficult and nuanced it could look, basically. Like in terms of like, how much do we need to think about how somebody else is perceiving something in these spaces, in sexuality in general? Where do our responsibilities lie around sexuality in general? I guess there is no definitive answer. It's just about what kind of conversation we want to have with ourselves and each other.
Yeah. Or even like in that moment, like I don't think I would have to check in with every person I've just met and then be like, by the way, later on, I'm going to be working in the playroom. So it's just, are you cool with that? So I'm like, I'll just completely steer clear of that if I can do.
And when it comes to the risk assessment, or like, is there going to be like an operational document when it comes to the Kink Coalition at all? Like,
I'm not entirely sure if that's going to happen.
This is how you run a sex party.
Yeah.
I guess that, I mean, how much do we want to standardize things, right?
Yeah. I think that, so I think like with the coalition, what we're definitely finding the greatest benefit from is like us having that
Just
support
being
network
together.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it's the same thing then. It's about the conversation that can happen. Because I guess at the end of the day, you don't want to take something that has been giving us freedom and clamp it down either into a structured format.
Yeah.
So sometimes the chaos can be great.
I couldn't agree with you more, yeah. But I mean, we have to have like a contained chaos in order to be able to survive in this world.
Yeah. And I guess when you're taking a role that's almost like with responsibility, and it's like, what questions do we have for ourselves in those spaces as well? Like I don't run a party, but people listen, I have a following of some sort. And I think that's why I also stopped talking by myself on this podcast. It was just like, you shouldn't just listen to me. It doesn't make any sense. When even, I guess, like a thought leader, when it becomes like a monologue, and like a mono opinion, it gets quite dangerous, I guess, I think. And so maybe it's also the same when it comes to the people who are running sexuality spaces. Hence the Kink Coalition.
Yeah, it's nice to have like that diversity of experiences for sure.
Yeah.
But actually, yes, when you think, that's kind of like, I guess, a tenet of how a sex party feels for me too, is that it doesn't feel like so much of the focus is on safety and well-being, so it doesn't really like feel very much like a party when I'm there.
What does a party feel like?
Parties you feel more free, you feel loose, you feel very relaxed, you feel very just like at ease. And I've worked at every single party. I've been to every single party. I worked at almost every single party, but I attended 2 of them where I didn't work at all. I just came with some friends, not to play, never in the Playspace, but like certainly just like attended as a guest. And that felt so much freer. And it was so nice to just like experience that as a party, because even when I'm like, have my shift and then do my 2 hours of dancing, like it's not, I'm still on, I'm still watching, I'm still dealing with stuff if I need to deal with it. So you're kind of like always have it in the back of your mind. Like,
so what's it like when you go to sex parties in your own time? Do you have a plan?
Yeah, go in with my set agenda. No. I don't have a plan. I think I'm
sure some people do.
Yeah, but I would say for me, like, I love, the music is as important as the sex element. I love, so I'll go to parties where I really like the music that's playing. And one thing though is I really don't, like in London, I don't have that much opportunity to go to parties as much, because I feel like when I'm doing Joyride, I don't want to be in club spaces that often. So like I mostly am working, but like in Berlin at the moment, I definitely have more leeway to be going to parties. And yeah, I think it looks different now. I used to do like a whole pre-drinks thing and go with big groups, but now I would say I go with like one other friend or so, and I mostly am there to like dance and meet people.
Do you think this is a result of just being running large groups of people?
I reckon in London it probably is that I wouldn't feel very comfortable playing at the parties, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Just because I feel like I know a lot of people and I'm like, I'm not as comfortable, but
you like your privacy.
I don't know. little bit. Like, again, I don't know if I would ever consider myself that kind of person, but yeah, maybe I do.
Yeah.
Maybe I do. But yes, sorry, what was the question?
Well, I don't know. It kind of made me think of many things actually when you were talking. Like, you're in Berlin now?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you'd come back to run the events, but you're mostly based in Berlin?
Just until November 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been there 3 times in the last year, and I wanted to just dip the toe. And then next week is the Porn Film Festival.
Yes.
And also Venus Trade Show.
Yeah.
So I didn't go, I went to the Porn Film Festival last year, which was brilliant, but I didn't make it to Venus, but I've heard some crazy stories about Venus. So I'm really excited to check that out as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a big convention, isn't it?
Yes, 20,000 visitors upon Berlin for this sex toy trade show.
It's pretty commercial.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's like going to like a car show, but with porn stars.
Okay.
You know, it's like there's stands
Yeah.
with a porn star who's like selling their channel or whatever, you know, like promoting it, and you can take photos with them. Or maybe there's like a production company that has a bigger version of the same thing.
Right.
Maybe there's an object. It's literally a convention floor with bright lights and and people have paid for their spot.
Yeah.
And there's maybe a little bit of a schedule.
What's the atmosphere like?
It's a convention. It's not that different to going to like an electronics convention.
Okay, interesting. I'm very interested to check it out. Yeah.
But maybe people will be wearing shorts. I don't know. It's cold now.
In October, Berlin.
It's just well, I mean, some of the Germans probably.
Yeah.
But it's just more a casual version of a commercial conference. Yeah, but it's interesting to see sexuality within that context. I think what the fun is that everybody's in town.
Right, yeah.
So that if you know somebody, there's a party.
Yeah.
But I think the floor itself is more of like a cultural experience.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Go with an anthropological lens to the show floor, I think. And then go with your freedom to the parties.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. But the Porn Film Festival is good.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah.
It's also nice the selection of films and therefore the performers who are there. Yeah. It's definitely more like indie stuff. As opposed to the big companies.
More mainstream stuff, yeah. No, I'm very excited, I have to say.
Have you ever created any media for Joyride?
How do you mean?
Like porn?
No, I mean, it is something that we have considered in terms of like creating video content, but it's nothing we haven't delved into yet.
What did you consider?
I think that there's like, so we had like an impact play workshop, which was fantastic with Miss May. And just off the back of something like that, I was like, you know, is there a version of this that we could be bringing online and doing stuff that you can't do on like the mainstream social platforms and just kind of testing that format out.
I think there's probably space for it. And there's something about your, I don't know, whether it's like the drive, the persistence, the reliability. I really feel like Joyride has established itself as a very dependable sort of brand in the space.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Thank you.
Like you're doing it the party at the same space, and it's just like, it just feels like, Joyride is there. And it's there to stay.
Yeah.
Thank
you. I hope so. I mean, I feel like, with the whole team around us, it's just kind of like, it just works. Yeah.
And so I feel like being like a learning platform of some sort would be a natural progression.
That would be exciting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but is there anything else that you would like to share before we disappear into our world of sex parties?
Oh my God.
And logistics.
Oh my God, some open-ended question.
Yeah, I mean, I like to be able to make sure I give a little bit of room.
Oh, thank you. No, I feel like we've covered a lot of bases and a very rounded conversation that I hope is
just an insight. I feel like there's a lot more that I would like to talk about, but maybe it might need a next time, because you mentioned how when you finally found something that was yours, and that's why you kind of went full speed, and this amazing entity has kind of come from that. But I feel like there's something about how people feel lost and how people want to invest in something and to make out of it that you've done very successfully.
Thank you for that. But it's actually, when I did think about this as well, is that like what I do is so pleasure focused and what I do is so fun. And so like the fact that I have managed to like get into a space where like my job is around pleasure and fun, and I can like do that as something that makes a living as well. Like that's why it's very easy to like make it my whole life.
Yeah, the dopamine from the dopamine.
Oh yeah,
Upon the
Like that
dopamine.
sense of fulfillment is rife, as well as I've as I said, I was a big party girl, and and now the fact that I have so much party, but it's not like anything that's like detrimental to my health or anything like that. It's a great little like spot I'm in.
I kind of feel like I managed to do that also. Sometimes I'm just up till 2, still just like chipping away. And obviously I'm not sessioning till 2 every day, but there's always lots of details. Also, in the life of a dominatrix, it's not just latex and sessioning. but yeah, I guess it's just finding that, just seeing all the parts kind of fit.
Yeah, it's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And I really look forward to hearing how you're feeling when Dublin happens for you. Yeah. I feel like it will be quite special.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually really glad that we did this now, just as we're about to do Dublin, so I can really drop into it. It's cool.
Maybe we'll reconnect after that.
I would love to.
Yeah. I would love to also do more in Ireland. Actually.
Oh, that is good to know. Yeah. We should definitely talk about collaborating there.
More people to speak to.
Yeah, they need you. Yeah, they do.
I'd like to talk to somebody who is still a practicing Catholic.
Actually, there are plenty of those as well. Like, you don't get me wrong. There's
something for you to think about.
Yeah.
Till then.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you.